Good morning, and welcome to the real world. Tonight is the art site of Reb Shlomo Freifeld, Reb Shlomo ben Reb Shmuel. Years ago, I was like to write a book on him, and after the book came out, there's always stories that come to you after a book goes to print. And some of them, it hurts you that you didn't get to include them in the book, and I'm very grateful to have an opportunity to share one of them, the Ilui Nishmasai, and really as a key to understanding what this Yontif is about and how to maximize the Yontif. In the early 1960s, Reb Shlomo was invited to Hamilton, Ontario. There was a Jewish community there, not a very big one, but not a very small one either, and they had an annual dinner in support of the Jewish Mises, Jewish institutions, and the rabbi brought him in. Normally at this dinner, Hamilton had a lot of academics, and it had learned individuals and educated individuals, and most of the times the people who spoke were a famous Jewish professor or a famous Jewish activist, a politician. It was unusual to have what you would call somebody like a Haredi rabbi, with especially one like Rabbi Freifeld with a big beard and a long coat. To them, that was like maybe Meshulachim looked that way in the early 60s in Hamilton. It was a strange thing when he came in. And someone who was there described it to me. Said they were sitting there by the dinner expecting to see a great rabbi. They didn't expect a rabbi to look like that. Rabbi Freifeld came in, and they maybe were a little disdainful or scornful of the people there when he came in. And then he started to speak. Rabbi Shlomo got up to speak, and his voice boomed out. And he said, "As you know, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most successful musicals in recent history on Broadway was a Rodgers and Hammerstein production called South Pacific." That's how he started the speech. And right away, Rabbi, South Pacific, Rodgers and Hammerstein, they're turning in their chairs to people shifting. Who's this rabbi? What's he talking about? Wow, South Pacific. Someone says, let me tell you a story about a couple from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And they're a very cultured couple. They're the head of the library and the local arts council. They know everything. They're completely up to date. So the 50th anniversary, the husband tells his wife, he says, Elizabeth, 50th anniversary, I'm taking you to New York City, and we're going to see South Pacific live. She says, Jim, that's wow, that's a dream come true. And they tell all their friends, and the whole Chattanooga knows that this couple is so cultured that they're going to New York City to see a production of South Pacific live on Broadway on stage. And everybody sees them off, and it's an amazing thing. They get to New York, they check into the hotel, and the next day, true to his word, Jim goes to the box office, goes to Broadway, takes out his wallet, he says, I want 2 tickets, front row center for tomorrow night's show of South Pacific. And the girl looks at him with the expression that only people in New York can muster up, and she says, there's no tickets. He says, no, you don't understand. I'm coming from Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're the head of the local council for the arts. She's like, I don't care where you're from. There's no tickets. He says, okay, I'll take any ticket then. That doesn't have to be in the front. What do you have available? She said, nothing. He said, what about for the night after tomorrow night? She said, nothing. He said, what? Never. It's sold out completely for its duration. There's no seats. Shalom, bye-bye. No tickets. And this is terrible. So he tells his wife, don't worry, we'll get a nicer lady. That lady's just nasty. They go back the next day, and they try. There is somebody there. Definitely goes, I'd like tickets. Same story. There's no tickets. Nothing available. No South Pacific. No seats. Not upstairs. Not downstairs. Not the balcony. Not the hallway. You're not getting in. Third day, and slowly their trip to New York is winding down. They do other things. They go to museums. They go to restaurants. They go to see other production, but it's not South Pacific. And it's going to be very embarrassing if they go back home to Tennessee and they haven't seen South Pacific. This is a story that Shlomo is saying over. It's the last day of their trip. It's the last day of their visit, and they still haven't seen South Pacific. And he says, tonight, we're putting it all out there. We're getting tickets. And he goes early, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He's there ready. And he has a wad of cash. And he says, please hook me up. Get me 2 tickets South Pacific. He says, I can't do it for you. There's no tickets. He's begging. He's pleading. He's cajoling. He's trying everything. And the girl says, there's no tickets. It gets later and later. It's showtime, and people are already coming in. They're watching the streams. The audience is already walking in, and they're not in. They hear the strains of music from inside the theater, and they're not inside. Intermission comes and goes. People come out to smoke, and they realize they're not seeing South Pacific. And the husband looks at his wife and he says, Elizabeth, listen, we're not going to get to see South Pacific. But think how embarrassing it's going to be when we go back home and we tell people we didn't get to see it. The whole town knows we're going. Everybody knows, all our friends. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask people who are leaving after the show for their stubs from the ticket. Someone will give us their stubs. They already saw the show. We'll take those stubs home. Tomorrow morning, we're going to read every single review that was written on the show as if we were there. We're going to know everything there is to know about it. When we go home to Chattanooga, we're going to show the stubs. We'll hang them on the wall, and we'll talk about it like we were there, and no one will ever know because we'll have the stubs to show that we were there, even if we weren't really there. That was Rabbi Feifeld's story, and he stopped, and he looked around at the nice people in Hamilton, Ontario, people who supported Torah, people who gave to institutions, people who meant well, but themselves were not that Jewishly informed. He said, ladies and gentlemen, what a tragedy it would be if we go to the next world holding the stubs of Judaism without ever having seen the show. That means you do so much. You're going through the motions and you're putting in the money and the time. But you're not really connecting with it in any meaningful way. You're not seeing the show of Yiddishkeit. It's a tragedy. There was a story he said. It's very appropriate for tonight for his yard side because it's Man Simchasenu. In every mitzvah, a person could do the stubs, they could walk out with the stubs, or they could see the show. Whatever that mitzvah is, they didn't take the time to understand what Daled Minim represent, the halachas of Daled Minim, the sugyas of Daled Minim, what it means to sit in a sukkah, why we sit in a sukkah. It's very hard to feel the light. But that's especially true with the mitzvah of Simcha. That's the special mitzvah this week. Because Man Simcha Seinu, to be happy. You could jump up and down and play loud music and dance, but that's not Simcha. That has nothing to do with Simcha. You could even be the opposite of Simcha. You could be depressed and do that. Simcha is something that happens in Yom Shama. And the only way to get to Simcha is when the person contemplates. For everybody, it's something else. For some people, it's enough just to contemplate. Hey, I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm in this world. Other people say there's billions of people in the world, and how many of them get to be in a sukkah? Get to the Rebbe Shalom chose us to be his people, charged us. Everybody has things that they can think about the gifts in their life, about the blessings in their life that can bring them to Simcha. But that's the first step to feeling Simcha. On Rabbi Freifeld's yard side, let's just take a moment to realize that there's nothing more sadder than walking out just holding stubs, and there's nothing more beautiful, or more profound, or more meaningful than actually seeing the show, the Ilah Shmasar of Shlomo of Shmuel. Good night.